Kia ora, good morning everybody. Can I say welcome to the Hutt Valley. Thank you for coming out to participate in the Ali and I Christmas party at the National Party. Good to have you here. As you heard from my speech, it was really a chance on the 2-year mark to talk about what we've been up to over the last 2 years, which is really about fixing the basics, but also throwing out that we want to also be building the future, and that's why we announced very much our policy around stepping up savings and investment. But with that, happy to take your questions.
Is that the campaign slogan?
Sorry?
Is that the new campaign slogan, fixing the basics, building the future?
We haven't thought about that yet, but I mean that's clearly very much what our focus is fix the basics, build the future.
Obviously, the budget had sort of first step towards this, towards
yes.
like Australian level super scheme. How long have you been thinking about this? What's sort of been thinking behind it, and why pull the trigger on it now?
Yeah, look, it's something that, as you can see in the budget, we wanted to start moving from 3 to 4%, 6 to 8 in total. This is a continuation of that. We want to do it in a sort of a graduated way, 0.5% increase each and every year, so that we can actually match Australia at 12%. And when you think about economies, as I tried to allude to, that are wealthier than New Zealand per capita, a big part of that success is often having a spine of really strong savings and investment, and it creates a bigger nest egg for the individual, but obviously also creates opportunity for more capital in a country that has been capital thin. So, I think it's the course that we have to plot, and we have to go for it.
Prime Minister, can this scheme really be compared to Australia, though, when in Australia the full 12% comes from the employer?
Yeah, look, they're different schemes. I'll let Nicola talk to that, but there's some very big differences. Yeah.
Well, one of the beauties of KiwiSaver is that people are encouraged to contribute because they get that backing dollar for dollar from their employer, and that's the reason a lot of people do contribute. Australia is different from New Zealand in that they, on the one hand, do not have universal superannuation, and on the other hand, make private savings compulsory. Our position for New Zealand is different. Universal superannuation is here to stay. And at the same time, we think having KiwiSaver as a voluntary product makes sense. So having that matching gives people a strong incentive to take part. We've seen that's the case. KiwiSaver is very popular, and so keeping that structure makes sense.
The other thing, getting a better deal in Australia, though, where the employer's making full contribution?
Well, I think what New Zealanders can see is that workers in Australia have much bigger nest eggs when they retire. Those savings are invested in the Australian economy, and New Zealand can have that too. By getting contributions up to 12%, we can give Kiwis much better options in their retirement. We can create a much deeper base of capital to invest in infrastructure, businesses, startups in New Zealand. We can have what Australia's got.
Is this a policy that National wanted to this full extent at this year's budget, but couldn't get coalition support? Is that why at the budget it was just that first step?
No, it was very much, as a government, we decided we needed to get on this pathway. That's why we moved it from 6 to 8. But for us, we think it just makes sense. I mean, when I said we want to build the future, we've got to, keep an eye on fixing the basics and the stuff that we have to deal with in the day-to-day. But actually, we've got to keep an eye on where we want to go as a country. And we want this country fundamentally to be richer and wealthier. And for that to happen, we need to be saving more and investing more. And really, that's the pathway. So it's a continuation of the thinking it may. But we think it's the right place.
I just point out mechanically, budgets only look 4 years ahead. And what we're doing today is really casting forward into the future, giving people time to plan and predict, and setting out our vision beyond the budget cycle.
Are you ready for a bit of pushback from small businesses or businesses that are going to get a bit nervous about those higher contribution rates?
Well, look, I think we're giving them time. I think, as you've seen, when we digested the 6 to 8, announced at the budget, and we're laying out quite a long-term plan here. It'll be a steady increase of 0.5% each and every year. I think we're giving everyone time to adjust.
Yeah, but are they on board with it? What do they say?
I was so pleasantly surprised following the budget with how employers reacted to our decision to increase contribution rates. I'll be candid with you. I was nervous that they would push back. In fact, they have been some of the biggest supporters. They have said to me, it's important for New Zealand's future that people are saving more. It actually makes a big difference to their workers, that they have a bigger deposit available to buy a home, that they are watching their nest egg growing in KiwiSaver. It grows their economic literacy. So I think employers will get on board with this vision. It's important they have time to plan, which is why we're setting this out today. But actually, all of us are invested in a better economic future for New Zealand, and employers are no different.
How does this interact, though, with the reduction of government contribution from the last budget? You were talking about how important it is to have a big nest egg. I mean, people are going to say this doesn't match up.
Well, I mean, we're going to continue with national superannuation. That is an entitlement. We've got no interest in means testing. I've heard people talk about that. There's no change for us in that regard. But regardless, we're just fast forwarding out 20 years from now and saying, for this country to be wealthier, we need to start to get ourselves on a pathway to greater levels of savings and investment. And I think, you've heard a lot of people saying that, whether they're in the community leaders, business leaders, political leaders. Now is the time for us to actually plot that course and put New Zealand on that trajectory where we can actually generate bigger nest eggs for our people individually, but also provide domestic pools of capital for the massive infrastructure investment we need, which also supports lifting economic productivity. And so, that's been our focus as we go forward from here.
Obviously, the other part of the Australian system is very generous tax concessions, 15% on the way in, 15% once it's in there. Nicola Willis, could there be a bit of honey to sweeten the pot between now and the election?
Well, look, I think the key commitment that New Zealand makes is to universal superannuation, and Australia doesn't have that commitment to its people. We think that's provided people with a lot of certainty and stability and clarity as they plan for the future, and that's a big contribution that the government makes. Obviously, it costs billions and billions of dollars, and that is our priority.
The modelling talks about a 21-year-old earning $65,000 a year. Are there really all that many 21-year-olds in New Zealand earning that figure?
Well, again, the issue, the thing we're highlighting in that example, that there are these 21-year-olds that do earn $65,000 a year, but just saying, if you think about the time value of money and you actually think about the impact of getting involved in KiwiSaver early in your career and what that does with the compounding effect of interest is massive. And so to be able to highlight to people that actually, yes, you could be, if you're on that starting salary, yes, that's about $1 million by the time you get to 65. If you keep stepping up over those increased graduation contributions, you get to 1.4 million.
It doesn't matter whether you earn $35,000 or $85,000. If we double your contributions to your KiwiSaver fund, you're going to have a much better nest egg.
You talked about how government agencies will need to meet this within their baselines, but there could be some exceptions. I mean, won't a lot of those agencies be coming up to you saying, please,
look, this is very manageable within the operating allowances that we've forecast. You're looking at around a $90 million cost per 0.5% incremental increase. That's incredibly manageable.
That's $360 million after 4 increases now. That's quite a lot at the end of it.
Well, I'm confident we can manage this in a disciplined way, in the same way that we have managed to put more funding into frontline school operations, into hospitals, while also ensuring savings elsewhere. The government needs to be a good employer. That means making these contributions, and we can afford to do what is a priority for us.
It doesn't start to after the current 4 estimates anyway, right?
Exactly. And much of this is outside of the current budget cycle, well into the future. And if I'm still Finance Minister, we'll be growing a lot faster, and there'll be a lot more revenue to choose from, and we'll have the ability to be investing a lot more in this and other things.
I guess just for those, the health and education, probably those massive workforces, 100,000 people in Health New Zealand. Surely they must be in line for an operating allowance top-up if this came through, right?
Well, obviously that will be the choice that's available to us, that they can either that cost can be met from existing baselines, or we can top it up as part of our annual budget decisions. And yes, we have room in our operating allowances to make those decisions.
Can I just double check that post the changes to government contributions to KiwiSaver, that the ones from the budget,
yeah.
There are no more changes to the government contribution in this policy.
The KiwiSaver policy. So what we've said is that, from what we announced at the budget, moving from 6% to 8% in a phased way, exactly as we've talked about, is what we're implementing.
The government contributions each year into KiwiSaver, there were changes at the last budget, but in this policy, is there...
No, we're not making changes to that in this policy.
So why is the government contribution so modest, considering your commitment to people having a bigger nest egg?
Sorry, what way?
Why is the government contribution, why is that remaining as it is, and why are you considering...
Because the massive contribution the government makes is to universal superannuation, and that needs to be our priority.
Can we talk to the sugar hit, and particularly immigration and the India Free Trade Agreement? Will that contain any immigration provisions?
Look, there likely will be what's called labour mobility provisions in that. That's been a feature of all FTAs, particularly those negotiated with India as well, by other regions as well. We've got some mandates around that, and obviously Todd McClay is working that through with his counterpart. But again, we're pro-immigration. We're always pro-immigration. We want to make sure that it's always linked up to our economic strategy, and also that we've got supporting infrastructure to support it. So we're constantly on the lookout for making sure that New Zealand's got attractive settings to bring people with skills that we desperately need in this country to New Zealand, and we're proud of that.
Is New Zealand First on board with that?
Again, we've got a cabinet. We have a cabinet coalition, mandate that we do with any FTA or any free trade arrangements and agreements, and we get a clear mandate, and then we send our trade minister out to do the negotiation within the confines of that mandate. So,
and I point out that the New Zealand First National Coalition Agreement specifically highlights the need to forge more trading relationships and names India as one of the countries with which we should be doing that.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we've been making very good progress. There's very strong commitment from both sides to get this deal done, and as you've seen with the minister down here and then Todd back in India last week, we're making good progress.
Can I just ask about the serious shake-up coming to local government? There's been a lot of changes. We can...
don't wear stilettos is the moral of the story.
There's been a lot of changes sort of talked about in the last 6 months to local government. Are we going to see a whole suite of changes? How will that
There's going to be major reform coming. I mean, one of the big hallmarks of this term of our government will be we are going to deliver RMA reform. Other governments have failed to do so. We've been very clear from the very beginning, poleaxing Labour's initial RMA changes, putting in place fast-track, what we call RMA 2.0, and then now actually introducing our bills before Parliament, before Christmas. So there will be major RMA reform. As part of that, no doubt about it, there's going to be a shake-up in local government as well. As I said before, we've got way too many layers of government in New Zealand. It just leads to endless bureaucracy, lots of red tape, and it's not getting things done or built. And so we have to simplify the system. And frankly, if there's a way that we can have 40% of consents not needing consents, that's a good thing.
So sounds like amalgamations are on the table.
Sorry?
It sounds like amalgamations into unitary authorities.
Well, I'll let Chris Bishop and Simon Watts talk about the RMA reforms and local government reforms. I'm just signalling very strongly that, and it's not a surprise in my conversations I've had with local government leaders as well, is that this is a country that has so many layers of management and government that actually it's stopping us from getting things done. And it's hard and they're difficult decisions, but I'm sorry, we have to keep changing the way we run the country to make it simpler, easier to get things built.
Merging a territorial and a regional authority into a single unitary authority sounds like.
I won't be predetermining that outcome. I'll let Simon and Chris talk to that very, very shortly, but I'm just foreshadowing that we are going to be serious about RMA reform. We are going to radically simplify the system so that we can get things done in this country, and that, as part of that process, the consequence of that is we also need to radically simplify local government.
This speech today was unusually frank on your part in that you conceded that things hadn't been all that flash in the middle of the year. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, it's actually kind of how I do communicate, believe it or not. It's sort of like I've just got to be very pragmatic about the reality that we're in. And, there's been no doubt about it. We've come out through a recession that's been the worst we've seen in 35 years. We are the country that was the second biggest country in the Western economies in spending on COVID. We're the longest COVID hangover of most countries. And we've then been dealing with a very challenging trading environment. So, that is the reality of it. As I said at the time, the Q2 number, the second day of April, Liberation Day, really put the brakes on everything as there was chaos and there was uncertainty and there was a lack of clarity, and as a result that took a hit to confidence. So it's just calling it as we see it. I think everyone understands that.
So are you confident that you've still got your Hawks' backing to be the person that carries on with this work?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
You haven't given any thought to stepping down?
No.
What was your reaction around some of the rumours about this announcement being a leadership change?
Well, look, I don't take it seriously because I've seen those stories before. So all I'm doing is focusing on my job. And my job, frankly, is to keep fixing the basics, as I've said today, and make sure I'm doing the things that are making us build for the future.
And what sort of conversations have you had with New Zealand First about lifting superannuation age?
Well, they'll have their own policy and their own thinking about it. I think, I've seen remarks before from Winston that suggest that they're open for increasing contributions. They might have different ways to deliver it, but the point is, we're laying out very clearly, look, we need to double the contribution rates from where they sit today. We need to ultimately get ourselves to a level comparable with Australia at 12%. We do have different features in our superannuation, as Nicola's alluded to, around national superannuation. That will be maintained. There will not be any any means testing while I'm Prime Minister around any of that. We want to give people certainty. It's an entitlement that they should be planning for. But we also are saying we are needing to send a message to the next generation coming through to retirement, ultimately, that we want you to have time to actually really crank up your own savings and your own investment.
Why is means testing off the table?
Because actually I just think it should be an entitlement that all New Zealanders receive. It's been a long-standing feature of our system, and frankly I think people end up trying to organise their affairs around means testing and other things, and they just need a lot more certainty that it's there if they need it. What we're saying going forward though is that you need increasingly different generations of Kiwis in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s are going to need to make sure they're also augmenting that with investments in KiwiSaver.
Can I just quickly ask you a question for our Auckland newsroom about the recreational fishing protests that happened yesterday and around the rule changes for commercial fishing? Do you have a response to that?
Look, there was very good bipartisan support from all parties in Parliament about needing to put protections on the Waitemata. I'm actually really proud of that. I think there's a lot of stakeholders, and it gets beyond politics actually. There's people who are recreational fishers, there's a few commercial fishers that will have in some spaces for a period of time, but the vast majority of what we have achieved there in protecting big elements of the Gulf is actually really, really important. And that's a New Zealand thing, it's not a political thing or a party thing. And so to get to a place where there's lots of stakeholders, with lots of different interests, but to actually get to a place where we've agreed, hey listen, this is a really, really important treasure for New Zealand, we need to make sure that we look after it and protect it well. So I appreciate there'll be people coming from different perspectives with different views, but I think in general we've got to somewhere where I appreciate not all stakeholders will be 100% happy, but ultimately protecting that Gulf for our future and for our kids and our grandkids is important.
Last couple of questions.
Can I just ask about event boosts? Applicants that was supposed to hit back at the end of October, MB's now pushed that to December. Would you like
around the major events funding?
the $10 million events boost.
Oh yes, the 10 million. Yes.
Just that MB's pushed out their deadline by which they're going to tell people that are successful. I mean, some of those events they want to get started sooner.
Yeah, look, I know you need to talk to Minister Upson about it. I know she's been working really hard on that. I went through her the other night, both on the major events pipeline that she's trying to build through with MB and others as well as obviously the activity she's got going on there. I'm not aware of what the reason for that would be.
I caught up with her on Friday, and partly that's about some local authorities who didn't make a bid, who still want to, and who the Minister wants to afford that opportunity.
Let's give them a chance. Okay, thanks team.
Thank you.
Enjoy the afternoon. Take care.